So welcome to this webinar. This is, I think, the fourth in a series that we from the Global Kairos for Justice Europe group have been organizing with the various organizations that have been dealing with Israel as an apartheid state. My name is Uffe Gerding. I'm the coordinator of the Europe group of Global Kairos for Justice. Tonight, we're very pleased to have with us Reverend Munther Isaac from Bethlehem. Munther Isaac is pastor, Lutheran pastor in Bethlehem, very active in Kairos Palestine. I'm sure a number of you have met him. Also active in Checkpoint and has written a book recently called The Other Side of the Wall. So he will be introducing tonight the Kairos Palestine or Kairos Justice for Palestine approach to the apartheid. There's a whole, you can access, I think you've got the link to the tools that Kairos Palestine has developed on the apartheid issue, the theology group, but I'm sure that is something that Munther will introduce us to. So welcome to all of you, and you can use the chat to introduce yourself, but kindly keep your microphone muted until we reach the Q&A stage in about a half an hour's time. This presentation will be recorded as we usually do so that you can access it and others can access it afterwards, but we only record the presentation, not the Q&A. So with these few words of introduction, I'd like to hand over to you, Munther. Thank you for coming tonight and being with us in your busy schedule.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. It's so good to see you all. It's good to see familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. Thank you, Uffe and friends at Kairos Europe for inviting me and for organizing this important and timely lecture. What I will be doing tonight, and I hope you can hear me well, what I will be doing is provide what maybe we can call a Kairos perspective on the issue of apartheid. And a Christian theological prophetic reading and analysis.
I think you just froze for a moment, Munther. Are you back?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, there are some lapses in your presentation. The connection is not too good. We can't hear you right now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now you're on again. Please
No.
go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we're hearing you. We lost you again.
No, I am also having a problem hearing you. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, it's better. It's good now. Yes.
Okay. I'm really sorry. The internet is failing me in this office. If it continues to be like this, I can drive 3 minutes to another location if that solves it. So
for the moment, we're okay.
Munther, I think you probably might need to turn your video off. I think it's struggling with bandwidth. I'm getting a message as host saying you've got low bandwidth. but you could.
Yes, can you hear me better now without the video?
No, actually, you're still breaking up quite a lot. Do you want to try sort of disconnecting and coming back in? I think we've lost him, Ufe, at the moment.
Yes, I think so.
So
I don't know if he's relocating or he's just rebooting.
yeah, sorry everyone, bear with us. We're just trying to sort this out.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You're breaking up, Munther.
Try say something more. Sorry, everybody. Maybe Munther is trying to relocate, as he said. He should be back in a couple of minutes.
Can I just add, I was messaging Munther about something separately, and I don't know whether he intended the message for everyone, but he's just said there, can you give me 5 minutes?
Okay, thank you.
So perhaps he is going to relocate.
Probably. Charlotte was, starting the recording again. Thank you. Welcome back.
I'm really sorry. My internet at the office broke down all of a sudden, so I drove home. And I guess now I have to suffer from the consequences of having to follow Brian. I mean, who am I to address apartheid? I mean, with Brian with us. I will try to add something. Indeed, you know, we appreciate your wisdom and courage, Brian. So before I was cut by the technology, I was trying to say that this presentation will look at apartheid through the theological lens, through a Kairos lens as well. This is not a talk that will address the legality, the legal definitions. I think this has been well attested, and we don't need more proof that what we have is apartheid. We don't need more testimonies to show that this is apartheid. At the Global Kairos for Justice, we produced a whole dossier last year. And to be honest, this dossier feels now outdated with the new developments and new testimonies and further testimonies about this as an apartheid. So what I would like to do is look at apartheid theologically and show the church why it's important to intervene. And I will offer a set of points that I hope build on one another and help us with a conclusion. And my first point is, and I will look at apartheid through the lens of empires. My first point is that empires, and you need patience with me, I will get to apartheid, but I need to build it up. Empire and the Holy Land, and sadly the Bible, are an inseparable triangle. The Bible talks about empires, addresses empires. And in the Bible, we see how empires always controlled Palestine, how the Bible was written in the shadow of empires and dealt directly and indirectly with empires. The New Testament was written in the shadow of empires. Jesus served in the shadow of empires. And over history, the Holy Land has always been controlled or attacked or in the middle of, as if some would say, the playground of empires. And over history, you all know the history of Palestine. One empire after the other Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, and so on, until recently, Ottomans, British Mandate. And one of the arguments I will make is that we fail to understand what's happening, and as such, we fail to respond properly if we fail to see Israel as a continuation of these empires, and precisely Israel as a settler colonial entity. I will come to that. And so this is the context. And as Christians, this is the context in which we should read the Bible, and even when we analyze the Holy Land. And my second point is that coloniality, empires are not a matter of the past. Empires are alive. Coloniality as a paradigm still exists. Empires today take different shapes, but the DNA is the same. And to help unpack or explain what I mean by empires, I will use a definition used by the World Alliance of Reformed Churches in 2004. It's called the Accra Confession, that I came across recently, and we're using it as a movement, the Global Kairos for Justice. The definition says, in using the term empire, we mean the coming together of economic, cultural, political, and military power that constitutes a system of domination led by powerful nations to protect and defend their own interests. So again, let me repeat it. The coming together of economic, cultural, political, and military power that constitutes a system of domination led by powerful nations to protect and defend their own interests. Today, we have an economic order, as the confession says, that is imposed by global neoliberal capitalism. This is something we need to understand as the setting for all of that. And so empires rely on power, but they also rely on economy. They dominate economical sources and the flow of money. This is part of the tools of empire. It's not just the military, but the economy and the control of economy and building these kind of alliances and trade alliances. And empires exist today. There is still the not just domination, but manipulation and using the resources. The word has failed me. From the powerful against the weak. And part of the tools of empires today is that they dictate terms. Violence can be either terrorism or war on terrorism. Empires decide. Empires can wage wars under the name of promoting democracy. Empires can even wage wars on the name of inclusivity. So empires today dictate the terms, and certain rules don't apply. So Israel can break the international law and nothing happens. Russia attacks Ukraine and we have sanctions the next day. This is how empires today decide, because they decide who's good and who's bad, to make it very, very simple. And here comes my third point, is that we fail to, as I said, we have to see Israel as an expression of empire. Israel as a continuation, if you wish. And let's remember that Israel was born out of the womb of the British Empire, out of the womb of the British Mandate, of Western colonization. And Israel in itself is a settler colonial entity. Now, going back to how terms are dictated, we can use theology, as I will explain, or narrative to show, well, this is their homeland. But in reality, the modern state of Israel is a settler colonial entity. What I mean by that is, there is colonialism in the shape of what England did to India, just taking, controlling the resources and the natural resources and so on. But there is settler colonialism where people come and take someone else's land and place. So there's displacement and replacement. Israel is a state that was started by European immigrants or colonial powers. This is important because, we have to not just understand the roots, but understand the reality today on the ground. So Israel today is a perfect example of an expression of coloniality. And going back to what I mentioned about the military power and the economic power, Israel today has a strong military power. They are very much involved in weapon trade, one of the leading exports of weapons in the world. Israel has global reach through its economic power in different fields, including IT and different economic trades. As such, the global powers see Israel important for their own economy. And so it's not just that people, we have to see this, I think sometimes in simplicity, we think people support Israel, especially Christians, and think, it has theology. Theology is important, but these factors are maybe more important. And part of the narrative of empires is the notion of racial supremacy. Because empires, as I will explain, always promote this idea of someone supreme against the other, supreme over the other. Racial supremacy has always been a historic and intrinsic feature of the state of Israel, of Zionism. And today I hear things from concerned church leaders that they are troubled about the recent government of Israel, that it's very racist and right-wing. Friends, Israel has always been like this. The current government is just more explicit. We have to realize this. Today, after the nation-state law, it's obvious that Israel practices racial supremacy, ethno-national supremacy, the idea of Jewish state. Jews only have the right for self-determination. Only Jews have a right to the land. It's exclusive right and unalienable right to the land. And they call it the land of Israel. These are quotes from the nation-state law and the current Israeli coalition. And as I said, to make all of this look plausible, empires change narratives or dictate narratives. So what I call, or what we describe as a settler colonial entity, is described as Jews returning to their homeland and establishing a national homeland for the Jewish people. And this is their land. Theology plays a part, and it's all self-defense. It's all, to defend themselves that they are exercising in these military actions. So we can justify that and call Israel, for example, the only democracy in the Middle East and so on. Whereas in reality, and I say this because churches oftentimes don't see this. I'll come to this in the end, in my conclusion. And so my next point, my fourth point, is that coloniality and apartheid go hand in hand. Empires and apartheid go hand in hand because, as I said, racial supremacy is at the core of what empires are about. This mentality of walls, of classifying people. Today, wealth is distributed in the world in such a manner. And at the Global Kairos for Justice, we are more discussing now not just apartheid, but global apartheid. The fact that economically and in many other ways, the world is divided today. By the way, in the last 2 days, I concluded a conference with Indian theologians here in Bethlehem. The caste system was addressed. It's another system of apartheid, and it's another way in which certain people control not just the land, but the economy and the other people, and dominate them, and create this supremacist ideology. Empires always rely on this, that certain people not just are privileged, but are superior. And once you declare yourself superior, you can do anything, especially if you say God is behind this superior mentality. Today, populism is an expression of this global apartheid mentality, where certain groups really promote and believe that they are superior, and they promote this homogenic societies. Empires use segregation and separation as means of control. And this is done physically, but also ideologically through the us versus them mentality. I've always talked about this in our context, the context of us as the educated, civilized, developed countries, them the back-minded Arabs, Muslims. The us sometimes becomes the Judeo-Christian tradition. Once you do that, it becomes, natural to dehumanize, then demonize, then attack and justify the violence against those who are inferior. You're entitled, you're perfectly fine, you're perfectly justified when you exercise violence. And as I said, you can call it self-defense, you can call it promoting democracy, all for the purpose of taking the resources. So my point is that wars and empires go hand in hand. And similarly, apartheid is tied closely with this mentality of coloniality. We need to talk about global apartheid, global coloniality. My next point is that the empire and apartheid need theology. Empires always relied on theology, on religion. We can talk about the imperialization of Western Christianity after Constantine in the 4th century as an obvious example, that I think is still impacting Christendom in Europe today. Similarly, we can talk about the Crusaders and and definitely Christian Zionism today and evangelicals. They're all part of that American exceptionalism mentality and white supremacy. And by the way, other religions use this. Islam used Islamic religion and faith to expand their empires, the Arabs, and then the Ottomans. So empires and religion always go hand in hand because it gives legitimacy to your action. Now, what is common things? The idea of chosenness, going back to the superiority. And again, it's amazing how similar patterns are seen in different contexts. In South Africa, the idea of chosenness was very much used in the ideology of apartheid. With the Indians, the caste system, how one system is the Brahmins is superior, chosen maybe, similar to the chosen people concept. The chosen people concept, God is on our side, and you can not just dehumanize, but make people fear the other, and as such, and part of the theology in Palestine is the control of narrative. The whole idea, for example, of a simple statement, Jews return to their homeland. That immediately places me as, or puts me as a Palestinian as taking someone else's land because it's their homeland and they're merely returning. So notice how a simple sentence like this has so many consequences on the minds of people. It's not apartheid, it's not coloniality, it's simply, we are the problem. Theology is used, and so much has been said about not just Christian Zionism, but the whole idea of post-Holocaust theology, Israel theology, and so on, Christian-Jewish dialogue. And even I can talk about biblical archaeology, which gives the impression that the land has always been empty. What's only to see in the land is the biblical site and the Jewish site. And of course, the pilgrimage today, that all part of this theological control of the narrative. This is what I like to call the theology of an empty land. The land was never empty, but through theology, archaeology, and pilgrimage, Israel was able to convince millions of Christians that the land was empty. And if it had people, they are the wrong side, the other side of the wall. Here's a quote from Munther Isaac that explains this reality. It's a long quote, but it's worth reading. Palestinian Christians, the native people of the land, were not visible in Western Christian theology. Just as Israel erased Christian demography and geography from Palestine, so Western theologians erased Palestinian Christians from their theology as if they had never existed, as if they did not belong to Palestine, and as if they were aliens in the Holy Land. The year of 1948 was a catastrophe for the Palestinian Christian community. They lost in numbers, demography. They lost a significant portion of their property, geography, and they lost the support of Western theologians. Palestinian Christians were not persecuted because of their faith, but they were disinherited physically and theologically for the simple reason that they were Palestinian Arabs. They were forced to make space for the European colonialism, for the European colonialism of the Israeli state and Western theology. End quote. So this was my reading and analysis, and I use all of this to make the following conclusion. I strongly believe today that churches need a serious paradigm shift in the way they analyze and act and understand what's happening on the ground. Beginning with the simple notion, we have to stop using the term Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's not a conflict, it's the colonization of Palestine. I'm not being radical. I'm just giving facts. This is what exists today. The more diplomats, and to be honest, European diplomats and church leaders talk about the two-state solution, whereas they know very well that the two-state solution is dead, really begs the question, if you know it's dead, why are you talking about it? Why are you promoting a dead solution? This tells me a lot about what you're not willing to do. It's just comfortable to talk about the two-state solution and to talk about a conflict. We have to stop talking about the Nakba in the past tense. The Nakba is still happening because the colonization of Palestine is a present tense reality. Israel continues to take more land and force more Palestinians to leave. This is the definition of the Nakba. This is the premise of the Nakba. More land for the Zionist groups, less Palestinians, ethnically cleansing Palestine. This is still happening. We're being pushed one family at a time. We're having homes demolished one at a time. We're having land annexed every day. So this is not about something that happened in the past and now we're trying to redeem it and there is a conflict between two people who are trapped in the land. We're talking about a continuous colonization of Palestine and a reality of apartheid that is still happening. Unless we address things as they are, and again, I'm not being radical. I'm not trying to hyperbolic things. This is the reality on the ground. And to me, this is the reason, to be honest, why churches are hesitant in calling Israel, using the term apartheid, the A word, in even before that, when Kairos Palestine was written in 2009, the most controversial section in Kairos Palestine in the eyes of the Western church was the paragraph on BDS. And this says a lot. Everybody's happy to sympathize with us. Everybody's happy to pray for us. Everybody's happy to promote a Palestinian state. Nobody is willing to do a thing about it. And everyone hesitates for boycott. So, by the way, BDS and apartheid go hand in, because if you admit that this is apartheid, you will have no problem saying we need to do something about it. So I say that it's not just the right analysis, the wrong analysis that we have, but it's the church's will. The church lacks the will and the desire to step out of its comfort zone and address reality. We want to appear righteous when we pray for peace, but we don't want to call things by their names. One of the things we've been talking about these last 2 days, the idea, does God take sides? And in the Indian mind, there is no doubt that Jesus is a Dalit, the untouchable caste, the untouchable, and so on. He's in solidarity with those who are untouchables. And I think this is something that church leaders around the world, the global church, needs to listen. Enough with this idea of a neutral, soft God. It's clear in the Bible to me that God is always in solidarity with the oppressed and the marginalized. God is not happy with our world as it is. God doesn't just look and, say, yeah, repent. He wants us to repent for sure, but God took action. He sent his son. The unwillingness of the church to take action is baffling to me. To me, it's not a question of apartheid. It's a question, why is the church not using the term apartheid? And could it be because the church is still part of this empire coloniality mentality? It's still part of the problem. So we really have to address that alliance between the church and empire even today. We need prophetic voices that challenge church theology and provide a Kairos theology as a response. We need to not just challenge Israeli leaders and our own authorities. We need to challenge our own church leaders who are not willing to accept or call things by their name and take action for what is happening today. This is my analysis of the situation on the situation and what's happening in the land today. on the reality of apartheid. And I hope that it at least brings some questions and thinking. Thank you. And I'm happy to receive questions.
Thanks very much to you.